Goeiedag, good day fellow South Africans, and before I get into the video that follows, I have to tell you that when I was a young man at boarding school, I went to Michael House, and my Afrikaans was shocking because I'd come from Tanzania and I hadn't had much interaction with Afrikaners, and I lived in Natal, and I went to school at Michael House in Valgaan, and of course, as a result, it looked like I was going to fail my matric because of Afrikaans. So my parents sent me to this farm in the northwestern Orange Free State. And it was a huge, huge, beautiful farm, absolutely beautiful. And this old lady who made us breakfast in the morning, we would have this porridge, and it was genuine homemade porridge. And oh my God, it's one of those things you never forget, if you know what I mean. Now, that's just a little historical reflection on my life. But what we're going to look at now is why there should be an amnesty and why the mainstream media should be talking about what's going on in South Africa. And I'm talking specifically on the farmlands. Okay, I know it's happening all over South Africa. I know it's happening in the suburban areas. I know it's happening in the cities, but this is specifically for the farmers. And it's a real shout-out call because apparently my channel is now getting a bit of media coverage, and this is the time to post this video explaining just what is going on in South Africa. And it's a wake-up call to all the loony left. And please, guys, rally around the South African minority groups. And I'm not just talking about the white people. I'm talking about a lot of minority groups, including people like the Indians. They're facing the same shit. You know, this is not a race thing. This is a Bantu and Nguni tribe who are violent, who are just on the rampage. And it's just really sad. Anyway, look, I've had my little rant. Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed, and I hope you have a great day. Bye for now.
Good day, my name is Albie Matan. I'm director of Mirador Agri. It's a local grain trading company in South Africa.
My name is Gerard Lucia. We are, as a family, on this farm since 1872.
My name is Bob Hotchkiss. I was born here in Queenstown area, lived most of my life here.
I'm Jan Low, and I'm a third generation farmer on this farm.
Robert Southey, and this is Lucendale Farm.
My name is Ruth Hall. I'm an associate professor at the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies at the University of the Western Cape.
My name is Doors Leroux. I'm a farmer in the rhetoric area.
I'm Boy Simon. I'm from Steynsrus district in the Free State. I'm farming here for about 30 years.
I'm Judelie Liebenberg, and I'm living in Queenstown in the Eastern Cape in South Africa.
The safety situation in South Africa, and especially in the rural areas on the agricultural side, is not good.
Why they shoot a 2-year-old child in the head? You tell me why they rape a grandmother?
We had, over the last 15 years or so, since change of government, we had a lot of farm murders, attacks on farms, and also attacks on farm workers. That is still a big problem for us. It is something that we didn't experience in the past.
The ANC took over government in 1994. More than 1,600 commercial farmers have been murdered on their farms.
More than 4,000 farmers have been murdered in the past 20 years.
This monument was started about 10 years ago. The people that have died here is about 2,700, but there's about 4,500 farm murders. in total up to now. Two years old, her mother, 36 years old, and her father, 40 years old. They were killed the 1st of December 2010. They were hacked to death. The mother and the father were completely hacked to death. The father had about 170 stab wounds on him. He also had about 70 cuts with a panga. The mother, she was also hacked to death in the house. She was brutally raped. Her legs were pulled apart. And this is the mother. The daughter, 2 years old, nice blonde hair. They took her by the hair, picked her up like that, and shot her with a pistol at the back of her head.
There's a big debate in South Africa about whether white farmers are being targeted and are being murdered as part of a deliberate strategy to drive them off the land. There's so much contradictory information about this, but I think that there is a widespread perception among white farmers that they're being targeted. Clearly there are high levels of violence against white people in rural areas, which are typically areas where most people are desperately poor. White families are the one pocket of wealth. White farming homesteads are the places where money is stored, where weapons are available, where electronic appliances and gadgets, cell phones, TVs, laptops are available. This is the place that you go when you want stuff. So when government appointed a commission of inquiry into farm attacks in 2003, its own finding from reviewing all of the reported cases was that 89% of the attacks were primarily motivated by theft, a desire to steal.
We've also seen that many of the farm attacks are carried out with a military precision. They do a very good investigation. They know nearly everything about the farmer themselves, how they move, etc. And then they send in people from other parts of the country to carry out those attacks on the farmers.
I personally think, if you read your history books, there has been a violent past. The Zulu in KwaZulu-Natal was a known warrior. They left no prisoners.
I've heard it said that by one of these farm murderers that if I kill somebody in a particularly gruesome and violent way and he arrives screaming in the hereafter, then my ancestors will know what a strong man I am.
The extent of violence, the characteristics of the violence, the brutality involved in attacks on white farm owners perhaps does suggest that in addition to theft, people are wanting to wreak some kind of revenge, almost revenge on somebody who represents a system.
They use the same kind of violence towards black employees on the farm. Very often there's very little difference, but most cases where extreme violence is used, yes, it probably is the white farmer.
Of course, there are not as many white people in rural areas as there are black people in rural areas. And I think that one of the great silences in this debate is about levels of violence against black people in rural areas, especially farm workers. So when a farm is attacked, it may be that only a white farm-owning family is attacked, but in many cases that's not the case. So of all the people who've been rape victims in the context of farm attacks, 71% of those rape victims were black.
those farm attacks have two main components. The one is to get the farmers off their land, so that the land is unused and it can be given to anybody else. And on the other hand, intimidation, because many of the farmers who have gone through an attack, even if they survived, they just say it's no longer worthwhile being on the farm, and they just sell the farm.
Any single explanation of violence on farms in South Africa is likely to be inadequate. I think a whole lot of things are going on here. This is a racially driven form of violence. It's also gendered. It's about killing and raping women as a way of demeaning male and masculine power, white masculine power. I think that the theft is a part of it. We can't understand it as just one thing, and I think that it's an example of how polarized that we are, that when people talk about it, they can only talk about it in these particular ways. Surely all of these are part of the explanation, but in fact we don't agree, and there is no adequate response because we don't agree on the nature of the problem itself.
The day of the attack, myself, my girlfriend and her son, we went to Levubu, and we came back about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we stopped in front of the house there, and we went inside, and then the next moment the dogs were barking, and the next moment these dogs were barking outside, and I told Ferdi that we must go and have a look at the dogs, what they're barking for, because they were, you could hear in the way of barking that they're not just barking for something, they are really barking. And then we came out, Ferdi came through the house there, I came through the kitchen door around, and we came out in the garden, and I looked that side, and as I turned around, the dogs rushed to that man. There was a tractor standing there, and the dogs rushed, and the one dog attacked the man and bit him on his leg, and he like shot him with a gun, a long hunting rifle. He shot the dog right off his leg, and the dog was killed. At that stage, I jumped in at the back of this electrical box, because those guys were standing there, the one with a gun, and the one had a long piece of iron, a dropper iron in his hand. And I asked them, what do they want? What is wrong? And the guy pointed the gun at me, and I stood in the back of this electrical box. And then he pointed the gun to the young man that was with me. And I told him, no, you must leave the young man. He must talk to me. And I told that man he must leave the child and talk to me. And the next moment, that man came around there, and he had the gun in my back. And there was the voice of the Lord talking to me, and said, I must stay calm. He will give me a chance to fight these guys. And we went into the house. This guy was pressing me with a gun in the back several times. And as we went into the passage there, he took the gun out of my back and indicated me to go into the left room. And at that stage, that voice said, there's your chance. And I grabbed the gun and turned it out. And I pushed that man out of the house. And I called the young man, Ferdi, to come and help me. He came out, and he jumped and pushed us all over. And we were on the lawn here. And I was fighting to get the gun out of his hands. And the next moment, the second man came back he went to try to get into the kitchen door that was locked, luckily. And he started to stab me with the knife in my back, in my head. And at that stage, after about 15 stabs, I got up, I left the gun, and I fought him to the wall there. And on the stage, I had him down there. And I ran into the house to get my gun. And as I came out, these two guys was gone. And then we were bleeding tremendously. And then we went to the hospital, and we got stitched up, and I spent 3 days they took us with the ambulance to Pretoria. I spent 3 days in the ICU there, and after that we came back to the farm. At night you are scared to go out. You look at things differently, and yeah, that is not a nice thing to because you are carrying this whole thing with you, and it will stay with you for the rest of your life.
Sizobadubula ngembamba bazobaleka du. Sizobadubula ngembamba bazobaleka du. Sizobadubula ngembamba bazobaleka du. Ulipul sizogoshaya uzotuchulwa ulipul.
I think the first time I hear them singing or chanting "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer," or one settler, one bullet, I think that just made me, I was scared when I heard that. I'm like, oh, these are masses of people, they're going to kill me. What am I going to do?
There was a song, I think the African words were Dubula Ibunu, which means kill a boer, kill a farmer. And there is even some footage on YouTube where the leader of the Communist Party, Mr. Joe Slovo, and Nelson Mandela and Ronnie Kasrils, who's a former Minister of Intelligence in South Africa, where they sing this song together.
An ANC youth leader, Peter Mukaba, who thought a new slogan out, kill the boer, kill the farmer. And the term boer, that is used to describe the Afrikaner people, the white Afrikaner people who fought the Boer War against Britain from 1899 to 1902.
Kill the boer, kill the farmer. There's nothing unclear about that, especially when you live in a country where the president of that country goes into a stadium filled with thousands of people, supposedly to make a speech about the future of this country. And what he does is he picks up his microphone, he starts a hum, and everybody else is humming. And he starts by singing, "Bring me my machine gun, a machine wam. Bring me a cannon, de bula and bunu. Kill the boer." And he has 10,000 people singing along with him. And us, these boer that they're singing about, we sit and watch this on television.
Those songs then became ingrained in the culture. And there was a whole controversy in South Africa around the singing of that song in the present day when we are supposed to be living in democracy, and whether it was still permissible to sing such a song.
So if you say kill the boer, kill the farmer, then it's very obvious that you create hate speech against the white farmers of South Africa.
Hi, my name is Barend Pinaar. I live in Northern Transvaal in the Republic of South Africa.
I'm Koos Maree. I'm employed by the Natal Agricultural Union, where I run the security desk.
My name is Adele Smit.
And I'm Tay Smit.
My name is Daryl Seeney. I'm the manager of Shiloh Dairies Trust. It's a dairy farm in Whittlesea, near Queenstown, South Africa, Eastern Cape.
My name is Dan Rutt. I'm an author and an activist.
My name is Henk van der Graaf. I am the Assistant General Manager of the South African Agricultural Union called TAU South Africa.
Hello, my name is Sunette Bridges. I am a South African artist.
opened the white lady from her neck down to the bottom. They opened her up completely. After that, they took off some of these hooks, they put it in here, and they hooked her onto here. And she was pregnant. They took the fetus, the baby, they put it onto the hook, and they hooked it onto this as well.
Laws, there are no laws. My wife and myself were packing small bags of peanuts, as we do sometimes. That was about 5:45, just when it started getting dark. As I go out and I come back there, there was 5 attackers waiting for me and attacked me. And then they bind me with wire and they put her next to me. In the attack, I wasn't aware there was 5 of them, so I was fighting with the 3 that I thought I can overpower, yeah. And the one of them with a gun, it was a revolver, not a pistol. I actually put him down and he was actually hurt. And so he was quite cross to me, and he stood up while the others were busy. And he was busy with a revolver, and he couldn't manage to work with it. And then he even asked me, how does this thing work? And because I know he was going to shoot me, so he don't know how it works. But yeah, otherwise it should be, or it could be different. In that time, while there was this noise and whatsoever, our servant here is sleeping in the garage. She heard the noise and then she started running, and she was the one that made alarm. So I owe her a lot. And then luckily we as a community are here, we are gathering like yesterday once a month, with all connected with radios. And it was the radio actually that saved my life. My wife is struggling a little bit, yes. As soon as it starts getting dark, everything must be closed. We start getting an extra dark, and we are in the very future going to change the whole situation here with extra lights and security and whatsoever. She's struggling, but yeah. I'm actually waiting for them for the next time.
About 10 years ago, they abolished the rural militia that was called the commandos. They were part of the military, but they were sort of rural policemen, sometimes on horseback or not, who patrolled and who could act in the case that there would be some sort of farm attack. And that system functioned fairly well. They had two-way radio communication to protect farmers. And then all at once, this was abolished. And that left the farmers completely defenseless.
In the past and the current situation, I can't see a very big difference. The relationship between myself and my workers, and also between the black people, are growing. I'm not feared as I'm sitting here. I'm not scared of the future. I can't tell you that I will not be attacked. There will be no murder on my farm. We don't know when they will attack you.
Everybody is concerned about the death of Mandela. It's anybody's guess what will happen. My belief is that if that is peaceful, we can only grow in this country.
Before 1994, we lived in South Africa. It was a great country. We had good schools, good roads, good police, good army, good air force, good universities, world class, the best. we were technologically on the foreground. First heart transplant was done in South Africa. I don't know what's wrong with apartheid. I know there's people that did it wrong. But in the end, all that apartheid say is, you've got your land where you can rule yourself, and I've got mine where I want to rule myself. And that's all.
I'm not saying that that era was right, because I'm not standing for that either. And that was the apartheid era. That was when I was growing up. So saying that that was right would be criminal, because it's not. And I stand for everything that's against that, because that's not the way that I want to teach my children. And that's something that I'm very cross with still. If I think about the older generation, my parents' generation, it makes me cross to think that when I was growing up as a child, that I was growing up in that era, and that these things were normal growing up. We had nothing to do with it. We didn't implement it, and I'm not a racist. But we are paying the price every day for that and for what's happened there.
In South Africa, racism, the black-white thing, it will never stop in South Africa. That's if I look back when I was 10 years old and how it changed from those days until now, if you look from the 80s until now, there's been a huge improvement in racism, black and white in South Africa. But it is still there. It is still there.
I see the future of white people living in South Africa bleak.
There's that little word called hope, eh? And I'm again, maybe it's me being naive, but I keep hoping that somewhere down the line we can sort this crap out.
My choice was, I farmland. We will worry about tomorrow when tomorrow comes.
I'm not going to fight for ground or for the right to farm so that we can feed people. I can do that somewhere else. I think the blood that I saw spilled in the ground is not worth the ground.
We need a total mind shift change. We need to appreciate each other as people.
There's a bright future for South Africa. It's not always easy to see. In the 1994 South African history, when the ANC came into power and Nelson Mandela was released, there was a lot of fear amongst the white South Africans, especially farmers.
Well, after 94, I myself considered it to go to Australia. But I put it after 2 or 3 years out of my head, and I said, no, we must just keep a head up and our hands on the plow and our eyes on our Father in heaven. I think we'll succeed.
It was around 10 o'clock that we went home. My daughter was sleeping on my lap, so when we drove into the house, we stopped right in front of the house. The dogs were barking. So my husband took the torch lit and see that there were black people lying on the grass. And he asked him what they were doing there. And then all of a sudden they just started shooting. So my husband screamed and said, I must take my daughter and start running. As we ran, they hit me on the back. I fell with my daughter. They took my daughter out of my hands. They broke 2 of my small bones on my spine. Sorry, and they broke my knee, beating us. They took my daughter, they burnt on the side of the head with a gun. They broke a collarbone and they threw her against a tree, and her skin was basically everything off on the side of her. She was 7 years old that time. And the neighbors next door heard the gunshots and they came to help us. And as they helped me and my daughter, we found my husband. He was basically all, like the doctor said, basically almost clinical dead. We found him in a pile of blood. They shot him 3 times through the upper legs and through the lower leg, and basically his leg exploded. 2 nights before the armed robbery, basically, we did phone the police, and yeah, they tried to break into our house. They broke open the back door, and when the police came out, they basically just asked us, you know, have you been raped, yes or no? So we said no, so then we haven't got a case.
It's not sugar-coated, it's not a movie that you watch, it's not a story that someone tells you, it is real, it is happening, these people are being killed and it's happening. And I can remember a young man, a young farmer that was shot, and he had a fox terrier dog, and he had his rugby socks on, and he had his leather shoes on, and he had rugby shorts on, but his head was shot off, and he had a little fox terrier sitting at his legs, just sitting there, just waiting for his owner to wake up. At the moment, I'm just hoping that it doesn't happen to my family. And I live in fear every day, and you don't really sleep that tightly at night because you are listening and you are wondering, and if you hear a sound, you're like, are they here? Is this happening now?
On a monthly basis, requests from governments all over the world for South African farmers to come over and to farm there or to share their expertise.
In Africa, maize is actually, not actually maize, it's a form of food security, and that's why all the African presidents, like Robert Mugabe, is using food as a base to negotiate with his people.
Well, I found a guy in the Department of Agriculture in Zimbabwe a few weeks ago, and I talked to him. He said, you guys, you white farmers in South Africa, you must come and farm for us. And there's Robert Mugabe. It's about 4 or 5 years ago they took the farms from the white farmers. Now the guys who work for him ask us, white South African farmers, you must come to Zimbabwe and farm for us because we don't have food.
It suggests that we're going through a moment of very rapid change in the world food system, and that Africa seems to be the terrain on which that fight is being fought.
The country has to be transformed. Land reform is necessary because they are concerned that at the moment 44% of the land is owned by white farmers, while the population is more or less 10% white in South Africa against the 90% non-whites.
The irony is that if you don't actually address the grievance around land in South Africa, it will explode. Already land occupations are happening in parts of the country, but in a quiet and uncoordinated way. I think that the longer we don't address this issue, the more likely it is that the land issue will be resolved in a way that is violent and unproductive.
If there is criminals that would want to break into a house like this or a farmhouse like this, it's sometimes, you know, easier for them to target like the man working in the garden or the lady that's maybe helping in the house, to find out what the situation is or what the routine is or how the house is built, how the security in the house is. So they target these people. Now they can either make them drunk to get the information or they can pay them to get the information. But they do, and I mean, Tanabantu now called me aside when these people were here, Red Guard, security, and he said to me that last night, past midnight, they were knocking on his door, someone trying to get in, you know, threatening him. And he says to me he doesn't know what they wanted, but he thinks that he needs a stronger door. We've been restless, you know, for a couple of days where you you've found that the dogs are barking, or you see funny signs like the beer bottles outside the fence and stuff like that. And now he tells me that there were people trying to break into his house.
I know 15 people that would call me by my name Bob that have been murdered. And that was, not all in one go, but probably over the last 20 years this has happened. Most of it has been robbery, but in all cases there has been sort of quite a bit of mutilation, or most cases there has been, from Bull Edwards to, in fact, some nasty ones where, for instance, Jenny Thornton up in the Elliot area, she was held hostage and tortured for quite a while. Mrs. Birch, Derek Birch's mother, and she just moved into town in Dordrecht, and she was a very old lady. She was mutilated, raped and that, and very old lady, 80 odd. So it wasn't just robbery. Then there's Arthur Bell, Fred Pettit. Those were all just single people breaking in at night and killing them, or single or small group of people. One of the murderers, there were 3 of them, one of them grew up on my farm here. See, all on the one section.
That is the gate where they can come through. You will see there's the fencing. It is electric fencing. It's not possible to go over that or underneath that. It's one of our first cameras that we have installed, CCTV cameras. There is a security beam that can pick you up from 20 meters, and there's another camera as well. We've got gates to both entrances of the garage. We've got security gates going in and out of the house. All the doors in the taxis can be locked. Two-way radios connecting us with other farms. This is CCTV We've got a security gate here, all on the outside of the house. This is a panic room that we have. A big panic room. There's water inside. There are weapons inside. There are an extra cell phone inside. And there are a radio contact with other farmers as well.